What is up, Nerf Nation? I'm Naptown Nerf, and this is an unboxing and review of the Adventure Force Tactical Strike Quantum. Alright, you guys, so the Quantum is the Adventure Force or Dart Zone version of the Nemesis. Now, this is supposed to hold up to 100 rounds, but only does come with 75, and they're actually already there in the hopper, as you can see, so that's kind of neat. This does require 6D batteries to operate, but I'm hoping that it will work with the Rival rechargeable battery pack, which would be really cool if it did. So we will definitely test that out. We'll take a look at the back of the box real quick here. Now, they have switched up their blasters from a green plastic to blue, so that's interesting. I kind of prefer the blue personally to green, and then you have still the green, the blue, and the red logos there that you can switch out and select your team, similar to how Rival does it with the Phantom Core and red and blue teams. So very interesting. Let's go ahead and take this thing and crack her open. Okay, you guys, in the box, you get your Quantum, you get your blue, green, and red team markers, and you get some instructions. Alright, you guys, first things first, I think we need to pick our team color, and I like red and blue a lot, actually, but since the blaster's blue, I'm going to go ahead and put on the red ones, just for fun. Just to give it a little contrast, we'll snap those guys home. Whew. Those do require a little bit of force to put on, but they are on there and they don't seem like they're coming off. But I assume if you want to pop them off, you can just stick a screwdriver right in this side here and pop them off. Shouldn't be too difficult. Now, there are some things that I've noticed right off the bat with this blaster. It does seem to be pretty similar size to the Nemesis. We will go ahead and take a look at that real quick. Put it up here against Typhon. And yes, it is, if not maybe a little bit longer than a Nemesis with this barrel here. So, you know, I mean, I wish it was a little bit smaller. The hopper seems like it's a lot thinner, definitely, than the Nemesis hopper, but also taller. So it looks like it's going to hold quite a few more rounds. So we definitely will see how many this can hold here in a little bit. So this blaster does have a very comfortable grip, has a nice stock comfort, but it is a little bit shorter than the Nemesis is. There is less distance between the grip and the stock here, so that is not too bad. I think it's still comfortable, but it is a little shorter, so that's something to note. But speaking of the grip here, there is no rev trigger, guys. No rev trigger. It has an on-off switch on this side, and that is very disappointing. I'm very surprised that Dart Zone would go this route with their flagship blaster. I mean, this thing is $50, and I think not too many people are going to want to spend $50 on a blaster compared to the Nemesis that's around maybe $75 to $80 right now that does not have a rev trigger. I think people will spend $30 more just to get that rev trigger in most cases. So that's very disappointing, unfortunately, and it's going to run down your batteries a lot quicker, and it's just not nearly as practical for warplay and what have you. So I'm very disappointed in that, but that is the case with this blaster. The hopper should hold about the same amount of rounds, but we will test that out. It's supposed to have 75 in there right now, and it looks like there's still quite a bit of room in there, but then it obviously still has to agitate and whatnot, so we will definitely test that out when we get outside. The overall look of the blaster, I think, looks pretty cool. I do like this grip down here for your offhand. I think that's nice. It's actually, I think, a little more comfortable, honestly, than the Nemesis is, which is just kind of like put your hand down here. But the overall look of the blaster is cool, I think. It's a nice looking blaster. The access into the hopper does not seem to be quite as large, honestly, even as the Nemesis is. And the Nemesis, in my opinion, has a small opening. It's probably similar to the Nemesis, but it does seem a little bit smaller. That is a little bit disappointing that they would design this that way. I would think that they would have learned something from the Nemesis and maybe made that bigger, but it doesn't seem to be that way. But this does remove. This comes up here, and then you can push this either direction and then pull out the hopper like this. So that is what the hopper looks like when it's removed. And, well, we lost some balls there, but no big deal. But yeah, it's very thin. So, interesting look. So this blaster does have some sling point attachments, which was nice because this is a very large blaster, and a smaller Nerfer is definitely going to want to run some sort of a sling or a bandolier on here. It has a sling point underneath here, one up top here, and one underneath here. So you could definitely run a nice 2-point sling there. The deco on this blaster is pretty darn cool. I think it's a really nice looking blaster. It has some extra features. There's a thing right here. This does not do anything, but the way this blaster looks, the molding and whatnot is very nice, and I think it does look pretty cool. It's very sci-fi looking, and I think that's really cool. There is a trigger lock right here, so if you push that, you will not be able to pull the trigger. If you push it back the other way, then you can pull the trigger. The batteries are going to go right back in here. It's going to unscrew. It's in the exact same placement as the Nemesis, so we'll go ahead and grab a screwdriver and load this thing up with some batteries so we can fire this thing. And there you go. Look at that. That is identical to a Nerf battery tray. So, very interesting. That means the rechargeable battery pack probably will work in this thing, and that probably be what I put in here to test it out and put it over the range in the chronograph for you here in a second. So we will go ahead and charge that rival battery pack up, and we'll see you outside. All right, you guys, so we went ahead and threw in that rival rechargeable battery pack that does work in this blaster, and that is super awesome that is compatible. And the hopper does hold around 125 rounds, but I wouldn't recommend putting that many in. You really don't want to put more than 100 in this hopper because that belt system will get bogged down and not be able to fire. Now, this does not have an agitator like the Nemesis or the Prometheus, so that is a bit of an issue, and you'll probably see why when I'm firing. And that is also the reason why this can't hold more ammo, because there's just too much weight on that belt system. So we'll go ahead and take some shots over the chronograph. I have obviously Nerf rival rounds and the sweet dart zone rounds that have little triangles on them. They're pretty cool and work just the same as rival rounds. This also would take any of your knockoff rival ammo. So we'll go ahead and put those over the chronograph and see how this does. All right, gotta flip this thing on, and now we're ready to rock and roll. 96, 83, 92, 94, 81, I don't know what the first one was, 89, 86, 90, 86, 93, 91, 86, 80, error, didn't get a reading there. 89, 82, an error, 90, 91. So around 90 FPS is where we're at with this blaster. A little less probably than, you know, the rival Nemesis or Prometheus, but still pretty darn good performance. We'll go ahead and take a look at those ranges, and then we'll go ahead and just fire this thing off full auto. We have the shortest one here at 48 feet. We have another one at 50. We have a few here between the 53 range and 57 foot range, but I would say most of them went around that 60 to 64 foot range, which is pretty cool. And then we do have a few way up here that went 71 feet, and those were the Nerf rival rounds. But I do think that the Nerf rival rounds and the dart zone rounds perform pretty equally, so I don't really think there's an advantage to either one. So let's go back and fire this thing off full auto. So this thing does have some funky noises with that belt system, which is a little bit annoying to me, but, you know, not horrible. And the rate of fire is reasonably good as long as it's feeding consistently, but obviously with this or any hopper fed blaster, there's going to be a little inconsistencies if you have to like shake it or something to get those rounds down into the bottom of the hopper. So we'll go ahead and check out the ranges now when we shot them full auto. Alright, you guys, so the shortest rounds are right here at 46 feet, just a little bit past that. But we did lose a little bit of range when going full auto, but not too bad. You know, I would say the majority, the average is right around here in the 60-foot range. We did have a few go all the way up to around 66, 67 feet. But, you know, the majority would probably be around here, and a lot of them did probably bounce a little bit. So I would say around that 55 to 60 foot range is probably about your average for the full auto shots. Okay, you guys, so the Quantum is performing a little bit under normal rival performance, which is between that 95 and 100 FPS. This was more around that 90 FPS point, and I think it's still performing pretty darn well, but it isn't quite up to the Nerf rival standard. The agitator on a Nemesis is far better than the mechanism this has. It basically is just the balls feeding right to the belt, and then the belt kind of agitates them as it's feeding, which has a very strange sound. You guys probably noticed when this blaster was firing, and I just don't feel like the mechanism is quite as reliable as a rival Nemesis or Prometheus. So that is something to note. It's just not quite up to the Nerf quality, but obviously you are getting this at a lower price. Now, that being said, I don't think this is a bad product. I think it's a good blaster. I think it's a really cool looking blaster. I really like the look of it. I think it's nice that this is a little bit thinner than a Nemesis. It's a little lighter, I think, than a Nemesis. And I do like the overall look. Now, the fact that this blaster does not have a rev trigger is a big disappointment to me. And that basically is the biggest non-selling point to me on this blaster. The fact that they, for whatever reason, decided not to put a rev trigger on their flagship rival blaster, but they did put it on the accelerator, so I don't know why they would put it on that one and not on this. It's really strange to me. I'm not sure why they made that choice. I think it was a mistake, and I definitely know people will not pick this up because of it. So I guess it's up to you. You'll have to decide whether you are willing to modify this to have a rev trigger, which would be pretty simple, honestly, or you're okay with that on-off switch. Now, the on-off switch is probably fine for most kids. They just turn it on. It makes it a little simpler, but this is supposed to be geared towards an older market, so I really think that rev trigger would be pretty necessary for the market that this is targeted at. But that being said, I think this is a cool blaster. I really am glad that it takes that rival rechargeable battery pack, and if you're not familiar what that is, it looks like this. I will put a link in the description to where you can buy one of these if you want to pick this blaster up. I also put a link, obviously, to where you can pick up this blaster. I think that rechargeable battery pack would be a worthwhile purchase when buying this blaster, because if not, you're going to have to put 6D batteries in this thing, and you're going to have to replace those a ton when that blaster is constantly revving while you're playing, because that's going to run your batteries down a lot quicker than if you have a rev trigger when you're only revving when you want to fire your blaster. So another reason why the rev trigger is so important. Other than that, guys, I think this is a pretty cool blaster. I think it's up to you whether you think that this is something you would want to purchase. I'm not saying it's a 100% buy by any means, because I honestly would prefer a Nemesis, even though it's probably about $25 to $30 more than this. But I'm excited for what Dart Zone is coming out with. Besides this blaster, they have a new version of the accelerator, the Velocity, which I think is going to be a pretty cool blaster. It has a little more capacity than the accelerator, and if I see one of those, I'll probably pick one of those up and do a review also. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my honest review of the Dart Zone Quantum, or Adventure Force Quantum, however you want to refer to it. Smash that like button. Please subscribe. And as always, guys, peace out.